Every business is an adventure. Just as life, it's full of ups and downs. Every brand or company has history. Some of them may have failed, definitely, but others managed to keep themselves in the game. In fact, many companies are still around because genius minds behind the closed doors made great decisions with perfect timing. As the business is an adventure, it requires a great adventurer. And some entrepreneurs are just too good at it. If you're on your own journey and want to learn from some of the smartest business decisions of all time, pay close attention to this list. Learn and get inspired by the great minds in the game. Number 10. Red Bull empty cans. Around the late 1980s and early 1990s, there were no social medias like Facebook or Instagram to advertise your products on the internet. TV commercials were expensive, and with a low budget, it was pretty hard to figure out how to promote a brand. The Red Bull brand was no exception. They were trying to solve the big puzzle when the genius marketing move idea struck them. What was their idea? Empty Red Bull cans. Red Bull just chose to think outside the box. They started to strategically place empty cans of their product in garbage cans outside of popular nightclubs. They would also leave them outside bars and clubs that were frequented by the demographic they wanted to reach. In this way, people seeing so many empty cans were tricked to think that the product was very popular and were curiously tempted to try some for themselves. Genius, right? While the strategy itself was controversial, it was worth the gamble. By 2018, Red Bull's revenue was $6.137 billion. Number 9. The inventor of liquid soap buys every plastic pump in the country. Today, liquid soap is in every house, but back in the 1970s, it was sold by only one person, Robert Taylor and his small company, Minnetonka. Taylor himself invented the product, and he knew it would become a hit. His customers loved it, and Taylor decided to go big. He had only one problem. His invention couldn't be patented. Without protection, Taylor knew that huge companies would just steal from him, and he'd get crushed by the competition. His small company, Minnetonka, wouldn't stand a chance. But here comes the genius of Robert Taylor. One day, he decided to go out shopping. His buy list, however, was just one product: plastic pumps. By going all in with his capital of $12 million, he acquired every single plastic pump available in the country. At the time, there were only 2 companies that were manufacturing the plastic pumps, and everything they would produce in 2 years was already Taylor's property. In this way, Taylor completely eliminated the competition, and the huge rival companies couldn't do much but watch Taylor conquering the market. You may say, it's easy to make smart moves with $12 million, but think again. If you only had $12 million left, would you take such a risk to invest the money completely in something? Sometimes bold moves may lead to great results. Number 8. Oakley Sunglasses Free Marketing. In 2010, 33 men were trapped at 2,300 feet underground and 3 miles from the mine's entrance via spiraling underground ramps. The whole world was watching breathlessly as the 3 separate teams, the Chilean government, the U.S. Space Agency, and NASA were working hard to rescue the trapped men. Finally, after 69 days, on October 13th, the men reached the surface one at a time in a specially built capsule. As around 5.3 million people watched via video stream worldwide, the men emerging from the capsules all had Oakley sunglasses on as a protection from the sunlight. The great move here was to donate the sunglasses to the trapped men before they were rescued. CNBC reported that $41 million in equivalent advertising time between live coverage, the recaps, and a rough estimate of the audience watching around the world was secured by the brand. A smart marketing move indeed. Number 7. George Lucas insists for Star Wars rights. After the success of American Graffiti, directed by George Lucas, he now wanted to bring to life his next project, Star Wars. He was looking for studios that would like the idea and would eventually produce the movie. At 20th Century Fox, not many executives were thinking positively about the project described as a Western set in space. But nonetheless, Lucas was offered $500,000 for it. At that time, this was huge money. However, Lucas truly believed in his project, and instead of accepting the money, he made an offer to the studio. He would take a reduced salary of $150,000 in exchange of the rights on all merchandising and on any sequels. The offer was accepted by the studio, and the rest is simply history. In 2021, George Lucas's net worth is $5.3 billion US. A smart man in Hollywood. Number 6. Facebook acquires Instagram. If you've ever seen The Social Network, you know exactly how Facebook started. Not many people liked Mark Zuckerberg, but everyone will agree that the inventor of Facebook himself is some sort of a genius when it comes down to business. His first great move was to make Facebook completely free for users. As the now very well-known company has amassed 500 million users, Facebook had become one of the most valuable companies ever. In 2010, Instagram is launched. After 2 years of life, it only had 13 employees and didn't make a single dollar in revenue. Still, Zuckerberg and his team decided to acquire Instagram for $1 billion. Some venture capital firms and other investors were already showing their interest, but Zuckerberg's quick action was decisive. Today, Instagram generates even more advertising revenue than its parent company. As if that wasn't enough, in 2014, Facebook also bought WhatsApp for $19 billion. And today, Facebook owns the 4 most downloaded apps of the past decade. Smart investments will always pay back. Number 5. Herbert Dow ends German chemical cartel dominance. Herbert Dow was an American chemical industrialist who founded Dow Chemicals. Great mind, even from his early ages, in 1889, Dow received his first patent after inventing a cost-effective and streamlined process for bromine extraction. This was much cheaper and easier method than previous ones. Dow started to sell the chemical for industrial purposes all over the U.S. for just 36 cents per pound. However, he couldn't expand his business overseas as the international market was dominated and controlled by a giant German chemical cartel that at the time was selling bromine at 49 cents per pound. The deal was that the Germans would stay out of the U.S. so long as Dow stayed out of Europe and other markets outside the U.S. However, Dow's company needed to expand to avoid financial troubles. In 1904, Herbert Dow begins to export his bromine at 36 cents to England. The lower price easily attracted the customers, and he was winning the competition. This, as you can imagine, didn't go well with the Germans. An angry German visitor met Dow in Michigan and demanded him to cease any activity in England. As Dow didn't like to be told what to do, he ignored the visitor's demands. At this point, it was war between Herbert Dow and the Germans. Germans make their move. Soon after the meeting, their bromine appears in the U.S. at just 15 cents per pound. This was 21 cents less than Dow's price. Germans offered their bromine to everyone, aiming to drive Dow out of business. And here comes the smart move from Dow. He stopped selling his own bromine in the U.S. Instead, he secretly started to buy as much bromine as he could from Germans. He then changed the packaging, making it his own product and exporting it to Europe. He then aggressively launched the product at 27 cents per pound. For Germans, the demand in Europe was in decline, but was increasing in the U.S. as Dow was acquiring their bromine. When Germans finally realized what Dow did, they were already halfway out of business. Eventually, Dow completely won the competition on enemy territory, greatly outsmarting the Germans. Sometimes one man's wit is enough to collapse giant companies. Number 4. Puma asks Pelé to tie his shoes at the 1970 Football World Cup final. This was when Puma and Adidas were tirelessly competing with each other to win the sneaker war. The competition was so intense that both companies made a pact to not advertise their shoes by the football legend Pelé. But according to the LA Times, a representative for Puma approached Pelé before the final. On June 21st, as the match was about to start, Pelé asked the referee for a moment. He lowered himself and tied his Puma shoes. At this moment, all they needed was a good camera close-up. Millions around the world watched as Pelé tied his shoes. Puma paid Pelé $120,000 for this simple action, but you can easily imagine the sales after that day. Also, Brazil won the match against Italy 4-1, and the first goal was scored by Pelé. Number 3. Netflix abandons DVD shipping business and focuses on streaming. Netflix and chill? For sure. In 1998, Netflix was a simple online DVD rental company. Next year, they introduced the monthly subscription concept, but as the internet was still not as popular as it is today, in 2000, the company saw $50 million in losses. Netflix then decided to make an offer to their major competitor, Blockbuster, to be acquired for $50 million, as this way they could handle the subscription part and Blockbuster would take care of the DVD rentals. However, the offer was declined. Netflix continued on their way, and soon they adopted a new model. Instead of storing DVDs physically, they put the entertainment on servers. This way, they cut all the uncomfortable parts of renting a DVD, such as going physically to the store or the waiting time for the delivery at home. Movies were now accessible by viewers instantly and from home for a low price. Netflix completely drove Blockbuster out of business, and in 2020, the company's annual revenue reached $25 billion. Predicting the future or being able to adapt to changes is essential for every business. Number 2. Apple brings back Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs co-founded Apple together with his close friend Steve Wozniak. However, then 21-year-old Jobs was doubted as the company's CEO, and the investor opted to bring in an experienced person. After a few years and some changes in the company, they were looking for a new CEO again. Steve Jobs himself decided to recruit then PepsiCo CEO John Scully with a pitch that has become legendary. Do you want to sell sugared water for the rest of your life? Or do you want to come with me and change the world? However, it turns out this was not the best idea. Steve Jobs himself wasn't famous for being an easy man to work with. After losing a boardroom with John Scully, Jobs left Apple feeling forced out of the company he started. The legendary entrepreneur then went to start another company called Next. Unfortunately, or not, Next never became as successful as Jobs hoped. Through the decade, Apple wasn't having a good time too. Their sales were not profitable, and the overall performance was ineffective. As a result, CEOs were changing their seats frequently. Eventually, Jobs, already well experienced, offered to help Apple. Perhaps for Apple, the acceptance of that offer was the smartest move to this day. They acquired Next, and Jobs became the new CEO. From there, things started to work greatly as Apple became the most valuable company in the world. Are you watching this video from an Apple device? Number 1. Henry Ford doubles his workers' wages. Henry Ford might be the single most successful businessman in history. However, the problems are also for those who are brilliant. One of the smartest decisions of Ford was that he wanted to sell his cars at a price that most people could afford, but such decisions present many challenges to deal with. One of these challenges was his workers. At the time, workers were paid $2.25 per day, and the work time was 9 hours. For most, this was unbearable. Ford faced massive turnovers that was destroying his business. In 1913, out of 52,000 hired men, only 14,000 kept working in those conditions. The situation had become so critical that at some point, the car production halted. It was time to make a game-changing decision. And as we said before, Ford was one of the best. He did something that was unheard of at the time. He raised the salary of a worker to $5 and cut their day down an hour. Adjusted to inflation, that would come out to $132 a day in 2021 dollars. This move hugely boosted the workers' morale. For such a salary, they were now more than happy to do the same job they were doing before. The result was skyrocketing productivity and production. Also, Ford created a new middle class that could actually afford the company's vehicles. A great lesson to learn from every entrepreneur. That's all for our list. Do you know any other smart moves in business? Let us know below in the comments. If you found our video helpful, make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more amazing content. We'll see you in the next one.